माइक बंद कर देते हैं।
Asif sir, Assalamu alaikum. Should we start? If you
Sir,
propose,
sir, please.
yeah. Right there. So, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. We welcome you all to today's webinar on the topic of new voting framework for independent and female directors elections, organized by the Pakistan Institute of Corporate Governance in collaboration with Securities and Exchange Commission of Pakistan. My name is Ghazan Khan. I am your moderator for today. I'm Manager Governance Advisory Department at PICG. PICG has been established with a mandate to promote good corporate governance practices in the country, along with gender diversification and independence in the board. And SECP, being an apex regulator, having mandate to regulate, supervise, and oversight various sectors, which includes the corporate and financial sectors. Hence, both our entities are involved in supporting the improvement of the overall corporate and governance environment in Pakistan. The need for this webinar was felt to get clarity and understanding on recent regulatory amendments introduced by the SECP in the Listed Companies Code of Corporate Governance Regulations 2019 and Companies Postal Ballot Regulations 2018, in which the concept of voting for directors via categories at the time of elections being introduced. This particular webinar aims to shed light on the changes made by SECP to address practical challenges faced by the listed companies while meeting their regulatory obligations relating to the election of independent and female directors on their boards. These reforms will improve the overall corporate governance framework and play an important role in protecting minority interests by ensuring election of independent directors in an efficient and transparent manner. So today we are honored to be joined by our distinguished panelists who shall be providing their insights and experience and guide us on the areas of focus with regards to the new amendments. Today we have with us Mr. Asif Iqbal, who is well-versed and experienced individual, currently serving as the Director, Head of Department, Policy, Regulation Development, Securities, Market Division of Securities and Exchange Commission, Pakistan. Along with Mr. Asif Iqbal, we have Ms. Sumaira Siddiqui, who is also serving as Additional Director, Policy, Regulation and Development Department, Securities Market Division of SECP. We thank you all for being here. we will start this session with a submission by Mr. Asif Iqbal, who will be briefing the whole point or objective of this whole webinar or whole amendments and regulation, followed by a presentation which will be given by Ms. Sumaira Siddiqui. We will then have some questions from the panelists, and lastly, open up the floor to a question and answer session. Participants of the webinar are requested to pose their questions on the question and answer section found at the bottom of your screens and are encouraged to participate in discussions in the chat window. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to invite Mr. Asif Iqbal to share his guidance on current amendments, please. Asif Iqbal, sir, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Hussain, and Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and thank you very much for joining this webinar. I will not take much time. I will just very briefly explain the reason and the potential benefits of these regulations. Basically, these amendments aim to facilitate both the companies and their shareholders in meeting the requirements pertaining to the election of independent and female directors. As we know, the law currently requires that minimum one-third independent directors and one female director needs to be on the board of a listed company. However, due to the different voting structures and the way elections are being conducted as of today, it becomes difficult, sometimes if not impossible, to have the required number of independent directors on the board. The maximum a company can do is to get the nominations for these seats. However, if they are not able to secure required number of votes, then they cannot be elected. To solve this, we have introduced the concept of category voting and proportionate voting. We believe that independent directors play a very crucial role in protection of minority interest and ensuring a robust corporate governance structure in the company. By bringing these improvements in the election process, we hope that both these areas will be further strengthened. My colleague, Ms. Sumaira Siddiqui, has prepared a very detailed and excellent presentation for you. She will be delivering shortly, I hope. By going through this presentation, you'll be able to more understand and grasp the concept behind and the logic behind these amendments. So it's over to you, Sumaira. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum. Assalamualaikum. Thank you, Asif Saab. Thank you, Ghazan, for the introduction. Thank you, Asif Saab, also for explaining the problem areas faced by the companies in complying with the requirements of law and how SECP has helped SECP's efforts to amend the law for facilitation of the companies so that maximum compliances can be made. We realize that since these amendments will be very significant and are going to affect the election of directors of the companies, my presentation would I have covered the recent law, the amendments which have been made in the law, and my presentation will also include an illustration which would be on the proportional voting. I have also included a slide on the frequently asked questions, which SECP has received after the issuance of these amendments. I hope I'll be able to clarify most of the questions in mind of the companies through this presentation. But still, if you have any queries, you can just ask at the end of the presentation. One second. Let me. Yes. So starting with the presentation. In this slide, I'll be discussing about the current legal requirements. Next slide, please, Ghazan. Yes, thank you. The listed companies are to have 2 or 1/3 independent directors on their board, whichever is higher. There is also a requirement to have at least one female director on the board of the listed companies, as required under Section 154 and Regulation 7 of the CCG regulations. Next slide, please. Yeah, the directors have to conduct their own due diligence before selecting the independent directors. The selection of the independent directors is to be made from the data bank maintained by SECP notified institute, which is the PICG. After the selection, justification for the selection is to be provided in the statement of material facts attached with the notice of meeting. Next slide. Next slide, please. Yeah. As it was explained earlier by Asif Saab, why was there a need to introduce this category voting of directors? SECP was informed by the companies that they do not get sufficient number of votes to get the independent and female directors elected, which result in non-compliances. It was also suggested that the voting procedure for the appointment of independent needs to be elaborated to ensure compliances. So, therefore, SECP, next slide. Therefore, SECP, to address the practical challenges faced by the listed companies during the election of independent and female directors, introduced the concept of category voting for the election of directors by way of amendment in the following regulations notified on July 7, 2023, which is the company's Postal Ballot Regulations 2018, the Listed Companies Code of Corporate Governance Regulations 2019. Now, to briefly explain the amendments in the CCG regulations, we have introduced a three-tier voting structure. As you can see in this structure, the voting of election of directors shall be held separately in three categories, which is the female directors, independent directors, and the other categories. In order to avoid legal complications, maximum number of seats in the female and independent category is fixed. For the female category, we have fixed a seat, which is 1. And for the independent directors, it is 2 or 1/3 of the board, whichever is higher. However, there will be no restriction on the total number of female or independent directors that can be elected on the board of the companies in all categories combined. The members can cast their vote to any candidate in each category, and the division of votes shall be on the category basis in proportion to the number of seats of directors in each category. Here is an illustration to explain the proportional voting. Total votes available to a member for a category is dependent upon the number of directors fixed by the board in terms of Section 159 of the Act, and the maximum number of directors mandatorily required under the regulations. Here, as you can see here, for a board of 10 directors, is fixed with 1 female director, 3 independent director, and 6 other directors. The division of votes in the particular category is dependent upon the director contesting in that category. The candidates who get the highest number of votes in the respective category in which he or she was contesting shall be considered to be elected director of that category. The members are encouraged to cast all their votes for each category, as the votes will be lost and cannot be used in the other category. Now, if you can just see the slides over here, we have tried to explain all your queries regarding the proportional voting. For the female director, as you can see, the number of directors to be elected is 1, which is 1 seat, and the number of votes available in that category in this particular case would be 100. So if only 1 female contesting the election, then she'll be elected unopposed. Otherwise, a member may cast their 100 votes available in this category as he or she may choose. Same with the independent directors, the requirement, the seat fix would be 2 or 1/3 of the board, whichever is higher. And in this case, where there are 3 independent directors, number of votes would be 300. Just like the female category, the members can cast their 300 votes to 1 independent director, or can divide their votes as he or she may choose among the other directors. With the other directors category, in this case, there are six directors, and 600 votes are available in this category, and proportionately they can be divided as the member may choose. Next slide, please. For the ease of companies, we have mentioned unopposed election, which means that when a number of contestants in a category has not more than the maximum number of directors for that category, then all the contestants of that category will be elected unopposed. The second amendment is also made to avoid practical difficulties for the companies, which states that the independent and other directors are elected unopposed, and they include a female director, and no nomination under female category is received, then the voting of the female category shall not be required. The number of votes of each category shall be counted separately after the completion of the voting process. Next slide, please. The timelines have also been introduced, which are to be followed by the companies. The notice of intention by the members is to be given 14 days before the meeting, and she or he has to select one category to contest for the election of directors. However, the directors would have to conduct their due diligence for the notices received for the independent directors. And after due diligence, if the candidate is not selected, the company will be required to inform the candidate for the reasons and the legal requirements that have not been met. The companies has to be done 7 days before the meeting. The next slide, please. All accepted notices shall be transmitted to all the members 7 days before the meeting. Notice is to be published in newspapers covering the following information for independent and female directors, which is the names, profiles of directors, and the category for which he or she is contesting the election. Justification for selection of independent director is also be provided in the notice. Consequential changes have also been made in the postal ballot regulations. As you know, we had earlier last year introduced e-voting for the election of directors. So the consequential changes that have been made are where the voting is in separate categories for the election of directors is held by the company. Votes shall be counted or unblocked, as the case may be, separately for each category of female directors, independent directors, and other directors. We have also amended the formats for ballot paper and the result of voting execution report in these regulations after these amendments in the sequential voting in Code of Corporate Governance. With this, I end with briefly explained the amendments which have been introduced recently regarding the category voting. I have introduced another slide on the frequently asked questions which the SECP received subsequent to the amendments which have been made. Most of the one question which was mostly asked was, can a member contest in multiple categories? The answer is no. A member cannot contest in multiple categories. He has to choose in which when they're sending their nominations for the election, they have to choose a particular category in which he or she wants to contest for the elections. Another question which was received was, what if a member send multiple conflicting consents, select 2 categories for election of directors? In that case, this would be considered invalid. The company, however, can ask the member to select one category, and if it's not done, the papers would be invalid. Another question another question. Ghazan, next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. Another question which was asked is, can a member cast all of his or her votes to a single candidate? The answer is, a member can cast all of his her votes category wise, that is, he may cast all the votes available for that category to the director contesting in that category, or divide the vote among the directors in that category as he or she may choose. So I hope this question has been clarified. The next question is, which was asked, is election will be held only in the category where the contestants are more than the required number of directors. Yes, the election will only be held in the category when contestants are more than the required number of directors in that category. Otherwise, just as the law says, the election would not be required if the 7 directors are there and 7 their number is not more than that. Another question which was received was, can a company place female director in both the categories, that is independent and female director category? No. As I discussed earlier, the contestant has to select one category. If a female contestant selects in a female director category and she is also meeting the independence criteria, then after the elections, she can be reported as an independent director in the statement of compliance with PICG. Another question which was received, whether there will be only one seat in the female category or it can be increased. The answer is, the maximum number of seats allowed in the female category is 1. The number can be increased. However, there will be no restriction in the total number of female directors that can be elected on the board of the company in all categories combined. Yes, these were few questions which were received by SECP just after the amendments. Just as Ghazan said, we'll be discussing we'll be having a question answer session at the end, just before the end of the webinar. Over to you, Ghazan.
Thank you so much, Sumaira, for this wonderful presentation, so informative so far. And we're just moving towards the questions. We have some questions for the panelists, as we have spoken about in the initial part of the webinar. So I have a question for Mr. Asif Saab, that is, a member contesting for election the category of independent director or a female director has to inform the company about the particular category?
Can you?
I think it's mute.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's can you please unmute? Asif Saab, we can't hear you. If you unmute the mic, we can hear that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now? I think there's a bit of
Yes, sir.
Sorry about this disturbance. Yeah, when a person is sending his or her nomination to the company, that person has to inform the company in the category in which he or she wants to contest the election. So the person has to choose between independent director category or female director category. So it will have to inform in advance to the company the category in which that person is contesting the election.
Right, sir. Sir, I have a second question for you. That is, what do you mean by unopposed election in a category? Can you define that, please?
This is also a concept I think which needs clarification, because previously the unopposed concept was there, but it was only to the extent of the entire board. So if the number of directors fixed and the number of nominations received or the number of applications received for the election were not more than the seats available, then the whole board used to be elected unopposed. So the similar concept has been translated for the categories as well. So let's say if we have 3 seats for independent directors and the number of persons which are contesting elections in that category are not more than 3, then those 3 will be elected unopposed. So अगर किसी कैटेगरी के अंदर जितने लोगों ने अपनी नॉमिनेशन जमा कराई है, उनकी तादाद उस कैटेगरी में जो सीट अवेलेबल है उससे ज़्यादा नहीं है, तो फिर वो अनअपोज उस कैटेगरी के अंदर इलेक्ट हो जाएंगे, बट उनके वोट्स जो हैं उस कैटेगरी के वो किसी दूसरी कैटेगरी के अंदर यूज नहीं हो सकते।
Right, sir. Sir, again, another question for you. That would be, I think, the last question from my side. That is, under what scenario will the election in female director category not be required? That's a
Okay,
tricky one.
this scenario was also introduced to in order to facilitate listed companies. क्योंकि आज होता ही है कि बहुत अक्सर सिनेरियो में जो फीमेल डायरेक्टर्स होती हैं वो इंडिपेंडेंट डायरेक्टर्स भी होती हैं। तो अब क्योंकि एक कैटेगरी इंडिपेंडेंट डायरेक्टर्स की है और एक कैटेगरी फीमेल डायरेक्टर्स की है, तो बाज़ वक़्त कंपनीज को ये हार्डशिप फेस हो सकती है कि इंडिपेंडेंट डायरेक्टर्स की नॉमिनेशन को भी इंश्योर करना प्लस फीमेल डायरेक्टर्स की नॉमिनेशन को भी इंश्योर करना। तो उसमें हमने उनको ये फैसिलिटी दी है कि अगर फीमेल डायरेक्टर जो है वो इंडिपेंडेंट डायरेक्टर की कैटेगरी को फुलफिल करती है और क्या कहते हैं वो इंडिपेंडेंट डायरेक्टर की कैटेगरी में इलेक्शन लड़ रही है और सिचुएशन ये है कि 3 आपके पास डायरेक्टर्स हैं, लेट्स से आपके पास 10 का बोर्ड था या 9 का बोर्ड था, 1/3 जो है वो 3 डायरेक्टर्स इलेक्ट होने थे और आपके पास 3 ही नॉमिनेशंस आई हैं इंडिपेंडेंट डायरेक्टर्स की। तो जैसा कि अभी हमने एक्सप्लेन किया कि वो तीनों जो है वो अनअपोज्ड सिलेक्ट हो जाएंगे। अगर उनमें से एक फीमेल है, तो आपने लॉ की रिक्वायरमेंट पूरी कर दी है, व्हिच इज़ कि एक फीमेल डायरेक्टर आपके बोर्ड पे होनी चाहिए। तो फिर फीमेल डायरेक्टर की फिर आपको इलेक्शन कराने की ज़रूरत नहीं है। बट ये उस केस में होगा अगर फीमेल डायरेक्टर में आपके पास कोई नॉमिनेशन ना आई हो, फिर उस केस में आपको ज़रूरत नहीं है फीमेल डायरेक्टर का इलेक्शन कराने की और फिर उस केस में आपके जो बाकी अदर डायरेक्टर्स हैं वो फिर 7 हो जाएँगे, फिर आप 7 सीट्स का इलेक्शन करा रहे होंगे फॉर अदर डायरेक्टर।
Right, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for giving awareness about these, things which are amended recently. So, I have a question for Ms. Sumera for you. That can a candidate from outside give his nomination for the category of independent directors, or it is only the directors who select the independent directors candidate and make them contest the elections?
Thank you, Ghazan.
आपको
Thank you, Ghazan. This was a very important question and a major amendment that has been made in the regulations. Actually, through this amendment, we have tried to protect the interest of the minority shareholders as well as ensure transparency in the voting process. Earlier, it was the directors who used to select the candidate for the independent director. Now, and then make him contest for the election. Now, through these amendments, what we have done is anyone from outside can send his nomination for the election of the independent director in the independent directors category, of course. However, this would definitely be subject to due diligence by the board. I hope I've answered the question.
You answered it very well, no, undoubtedly. So moving on to the another question that is
Sorry, Ghazan,
for
I
you,
can't hear you.
Ms. Sumera. That is whether, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I have a question for you. That's another question. Whether the votes of the unopposed category will be available in other categories?
The answer is no. The person cannot. The votes will not be shifted to the other category. Votes in one category will not be available in the other category. They have to use it in that particular category. That's the way it is.
Right. So leading to this, what happens if a member does not cast his or her vote for a particular category of directors?
Yeah, if the person doesn't cast his votes in that category, his votes will be lost. So the idea is the voters, the member have to cast their vote in that particular category. Otherwise, it will be lost. And this was a main purpose of introducing the category voting, so that their votes do not get lost. And earlier, the people were resulting in the non-compliances.
Right. Okay. So far we have covered maximum, the questions with regards to these amendments. I have some questions from the participants. Now we are going forward, and catering these questions. So first questions, either Asif Saab, you would be answering it, or Ma'am Sumaira. So I'm throwing that question, that is, if female is independent, she can be counted to fulfill independent requirement as well, or she just be just like that, like female category and independent. So it's about the fulfillment of the requirement. So who is going to answer that?
Yeah, Gizem, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
ओके, थैंक यू। अच्छा, इसमें वज़ैन, जैसे कि हमने पहले इसको देखा, जब आपको अपनी नॉमिनेशन भेजनी होती है, उसी टाइम पे आपको कैटेगरी जो है वो चूज़ करनी होती है कि आप किस कैटेगरी से इलेक्शन लड़ रहे हैं। तो अगर एक फीमेल डायरेक्टर है और वो इंडिपेंडेंट डायरेक्टर का क्राइटेरिया फुलफिल कर रही है, तो चॉइस इज इंटायरली हर्स कि वो किस कैटेगरी के अंदर इलेक्शन लड़ना चाहती है। अगर वो चाहे तो इंडिपेंडेंट डायरेक्टर की कैटेगरी के अंदर भी इलेक्शन लड़ सकती है। अगर वो चाहे तो जो स्पेशल सीट है फीमेल डायरेक्टर्स की, उसमें भी वो ये इलेक्शन लड़ सकती है। बट जैसा कि हमने पहले एक्सप्लेन किया कि अगर ये सिनेरियो है कि वो फीमेल डायरेक्टर है, इंडिपेंडेंट डायरेक्टर की कैटेगरी को भी वो फुलफिल करती है, उसके रिक्वायरमेंट को, और अगर वो इंडिपेंडेंट डायरेक्टर की कैटेगरी से इलेक्शन लड़ रही है, तो अगर हमें ये श्योरिटी है कि बोर्ड पे फीमेल डायरेक्टर एक इलेक्ट हो जाएगी, ये अनअपोज्ड आ रहे हैं इंडिपेंडेंट डायरेक्टर्स, तो फिर फीमेल डायरेक्टर का फिर अलग से कंपनी को इलेक्शन कराने की जरूरत।
Right. So it's quite straightforward. It's there's no that is quite straightforward. I believe so. You're right. So it should be initially when they file the contestation, they should mention that either they are going for the female one or they are going for the independent one. So the categories are well defined in the law. Right. So moving on to the another question, there's one question, Mr. Vera, I would like to ask you from the participants side. That is on in case there's only one female director who gets elected unopposed, so that category is fulfilled. Then can I cast the 100 votes reserved for this category to the other categories, or I am now only left with 900 votes to cast? 600 in the other category and 300 in independent director category. So it's basically related to your example which you have given in the presentation, illustration wala. So I probably ask you to answer that. We can't hear you.
Yeah, okay. I was saying that I thought you're asking this question because it was specifically for the females. Actually, I have already answered this question while I was giving my presentation. If a female has been elected unopposed, if I am getting your question right, you're asking in case of the unopposed elections for a female category, can a person can shift his votes to the other category? Is that the question?
Well, that's basically the 100 votes which were dedicated to that category, female wali category, and it's unopposed already. So his 100 or her 100 votes would be, lost. Obviously, as per my understanding, as I have seen the illustration, so the category wise voting is already dedicated to the shareholder or the person who is casting the vote. So those shares, I think, would be like lost, or I think would not be going to be casted.
Yeah, your understanding is perfectly correct. The votes would be lost if they are not casted in the particular category. So the members are encouraged to cast their vote in the particular category. Otherwise, they'll be lost. They can't be transferred to the other category.
Okay, thank you for answering this question. Okay, I have another question that is on justification for selecting the candidate for appointment of independent director. Justifications are section 166 and data check with PICG. So while giving mandate to appointing the independent director, so it's the responsibility lies on the company to check the data bank for the independent director as per the section 166, if I'm not wrong. So if you shed some light on that independent director, what should independent director do while contesting as an independent director? If I'm not getting that question wrong, I think that's what.
I think the question is, I didn't understand the question. Could you repeat it once more? Like exactly what's the question?
Yeah, I'm repeating that. Let me repeat that. It says justification for selecting the candidate for appointment of independent director. Again, they are using the word justifications. Justifications are section 166 and data check with PICG. So it relates to the independent directors selection, manner
Yes,
selection of independent directors,
yeah.
section 166. So yeah. Please.
It's there in the regulations. This amendment has also been made. The directors have to give their justification 7 days before the election. Why have they selected the particular person for the election, which would include the profiles and names of the directors as well. This has to be published 7 days before the election date.
Right. So the company has to do the due diligence for that, right? It's at the part of the company's.
That's after everything is complete.
So right. So lastly, there's one question. It's very simple one. It says, I think we have already covered that, but still I'm throwing that in order to understand, for everyone, like to clarify this. Please clarify that female director can be an independent director too.
Yes, the female director, she can be an independent director, but when the female is submitting her consent with the company, she has to choose which category she wants to be. She wants herself to be contested, whether it's a female category or it's in the independent director. It's on the discretion of the candidate, so which category to select.
Right. Thank you so much, Sumera. Right. There are two more questions we just recently received from the participant side. There's one on what would be the way forward where no nomination is received for the category of female director, but a female director is selected in the category of independent director.
Asif Saab has also explained this. When there is no nomination for the category of the female director, and the independent director includes a female candidate, so the company has a discretion of. The company is not required to hold the election for the female category. However, they have, just to complete the numbers, they have to adjust the number in the other directors categories.
Right. Thank you so much. And there's one more question. It's quite straightforward, I think. It says, like, in case if the intentions received from the contestants for election of directors is not more than the number of directors to be elected. So the number of directors fixed are the same. Then is there still requirement of voting?
No, there's no required to hold elections for in such a case, because the number is the same, so they'll be re-elected. There's no requirement for holding a meeting for this.
Right. So we are done with the questions so far. I hope we have covered a maximum number of questions asked by the participants. And there's one I received just now. If you allow me, I can call that. That what if a female contestant for the other category and is not elected? And if there are no nominations for the female category, how will the one female condition be met?
Asif Saab, would you like to answer this? Could you repeat the question?
Can I repeat the question?
नहीं, I think we understand. I think जो आप ये कह रहे हैं कि अगर कोई नॉमिनेशन नहीं आई फीमेल कैटेगरी के लिए तो उस केस में क्या होगा? Is that correct?
जी बिल्कुल.
अच्छा देखिए, इसमें जो हमारी अंडरस्टैंडिंग है, इसमें 2
Yes, it
ऑप्शंस
says
हैं।
like जी जी
इसमें 2 आई थिंक कंपनी के पास ऑप्शंस हैं। एक ऑप्शन तो हमने अभी डिटेल में डिस्कस किया कि रूटीन में कंपनीज उसको इस तरीके से मैनेज करती हैं कि उनके पास अक्सर इंडिपेंडेंट डायरेक्टर्स जब वो इलेक्ट कर रही होती हैं, तो आज भी वो फीमेल की जो रिक्वायरमेंट है उसको कोशिश करती हैं कि वहीं से वो फुलफिल हो जाए। तो अगर उस केस में उनके पास जैसे कि हमने एक्सप्लेन किया, अगर एक फीमेल डायरेक्टर उनके पास मौजूद है इंडिपेंडेंट डायरेक्टर्स के अंदर, और कोई नॉमिनेशन नहीं आती उनको फीमेल डायरेक्टर की, तो ज़ाहिर है उनको फिर उस कैटेगरी का इलेक्शन कराने की जरूरत नहीं है। और अगर वो इंडिपेंडेंट डायरेक्टर्स अनअपोज इलेक्ट हो जाते हैं, तो वो रिक्वायरमेंट ऑफ लॉ भी जो है वो वहाँ से कंप्लाई हो जाएगी। अदर देन दैट जो है फिर आई थिंक कंपनी की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी बनती है कि इस रिक्वायरमेंट को पूरा करने के लिए वो इंश्योर करें कि फीमेल डायरेक्टर जो है वो शेयर होल्डर कैटेगरी से या इंडिपेंडेंट कैटेगरी से कहीं ना कहीं से वो उनकी प्रेजेंस इंश्योर करें, क्योंकि इस रिक्वायरमेंट का मकसद ही यही है कि बोर्ड के ऊपर डाइवर्सिटी लाई जाए। और आई थिंक हमने एससीसीपी ने अपना पार्ट प्ले करने की कोशिश की है। जो हमें कंप्लेंट्स आती थी कि अगर हम फीमेल्स को नॉमिनेशन पे ले भी आते हैं कंपनीज की, एक्चुअली प्रॉब्लम जो है वो थोड़ा सा डिफरेंट नेचर का है। जो कंपनियां वाकई इस रिक्वायरमेंट को कंप्लाई करना चाहती हैं, उनको ज़्यादा ये प्रॉब्लम आती है कि वो कहती हैं कि जी हम अगर फीमेल डायरेक्टर्स की नॉमिनेशन ले भी आते हैं, और हम समझते भी हैं कि बोर्ड के ऊपर होना ज़रूरी है फीमेल डायरेक्टर्स को डाइवर्सिटी के लिए, और इंडिपेंडेंट डायरेक्टर का होना भी ज़रूरी है। बट प्रॉब्लम ये है कि जब हम उनको इलेक्शन में खड़ा करते हैं तो उनको रिक्वायर्ड नंबर ऑफ वोट्स नहीं मिलते, क्योंकि आज फीमेल डायरेक्टर्स और इंडिपेंडेंट डायरेक्टर्स पूरे बोर्ड के साथ कम्पीट कर रहे होते हैं। देन ऑब्वियसली द शेयर होल्डिंग स्ट्रक्चर देन कम्स इनटू प्ले। और फिर ज़्यादा जो शेयर होल्डर जो हैं, अगर एक से ज़्यादा शेयर होल्डर ग्रुप्स हैं, तो वो कोई भी अपने वोट सेक्रीफाइस नहीं फिर करना चाह रहा होता इन द फेवर ऑफ फीमेल डायरेक्टर्स और इंडिपेंडेंट डायरेक्टर्स। और फिर हर किसी को ये प्रॉब्लम आ रही होती है कि जी मैंने अगर अपने वोट जो है इंडिपेंडेंट डायरेक्टर्स को दे दिए या फीमेल डायरेक्टर्स को दे दिए, तो फिर मेरा वोटिंग जो है पावर डाइल्यूट हो जाएगा, और मुझे मेरी वोट के ऊपर मुझे मेरी ट्रू रिप्रेजेंटेशन जो है वो नहीं मिल पाएगी। और दूसरा जो पॉइंट था वो ये भी है कि ज़्यादा इंडिपेंडेंट डायरेक्टर्स को, फीमेल डायरेक्टर्स को इलेक्ट करना सबकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है। सारे शेयर होल्डर्स को उसमें अपना पार्ट प्ले करना चाहिए। और इस थीम को सामने रखते हुए फिर हमने एससीसीबी ने अपना पार्ट प्ले करने की कोशिश की कि कंपनी को फैसिलिटेट किया कि आप कैटेगरी वोटिंग अगर कर लें और प्रोपोर्शनेट वोटिंग कर लें, तो फिर वो प्रॉब्लम खत्म हो जाता है कि आपको वो फिर वोट नहीं मिलेगा या आप इलेक्ट नहीं हो पाएंगे। फिर हमने अनपोस्ट का कॉन्सेप्ट भी डाल दिया, वो भी कंपनीज को फैसिलिटेट करने के लिए हमने किया कि जहाँ पे नंबर ऑफ डायरेक्टर सेम है, तो वहाँ पे फिर आपको इलेक्शन कराने की जैसे जरूरत नहीं है, ज़्यादा वैसे इलेक्ट हो जाएंगे। तो आई थिंक इन सब चीज़ों को देखते हुए अब ज़ाहिर है कि हम सबकी जिम्मेदारी है, जो शेयर होल्डर्स हैं उनके पास भी अपॉर्चुनिटी है, वो माइनॉरिटी शेयर होल्डर्स अपना जो है अब फीमेल डायरेक्टर के अंदर भी अपने कैंडिडेट्स भेज सकते हैं। क्योंकि हमने जो दूसरा इसमें एक मेजर जो इम्प्रूवमेंट हम लाए हैं वो ये है कि हमने पहले इसमें एम्बिग्विटी थी कि अगर कोई बंदा आउटसाइड जो है आउटसाइड द मैनेजमेंट, वो अगर अपने आप को एज ए इंडिपेंडेंट डायरेक्टर लाना चाहते हो, तो क्या वो अपनी नॉमिनेशन सबमिट कर सकता है कि नहीं कर सकता। तो आज इसमें एम्बिग्विटी थी। बाज़ औक़ात ये प्रॉब्लम आता था कि लोग नॉमिनेशन भेजते थे, बट कंपनीज ये कहती नहीं कि जी ये तो पावर हमारे पास है और हमने बस 3 बंदे सेलेक्ट कर लिए डेटा बैंक में से, हम उन्हीं को खड़ा करेंगे। तो वो एम्बिग्विटी को भी हमने खत्म किया है। आज कोई भी पर्सन जो है जो समझता है कि मैं इंडिपेंडेंट डायरेक्टर की कैटेगरी में फॉल करता हूँ, तो वो अपना नाम भेज सकता है और वो इलेक्शन लड़ सकता है, जिसको हमने इंश्योर किया है इन अमेंडमेंट्स के थ्रू। फिर इसी तरह फीमेल डायरेक्टर्स में इट्स ओपन टू एवरीवन। माइनॉरिटी शेयरहोल्डर्स भी आ सकते हैं। इंडिपेंडेंट डायरेक्टर्स की कैटेगरी में अगर कोई है पर्सन और वो इधर आना चाहता है, इधर भी आ सकता है, क्योंकि देयर इज नो बार ऑन मैक्सिमम नंबर ऑफ फीमेल डायरेक्टर्स और इंडिपेंडेंट डायरेक्टर्स। तो आई थिंक अब दूसरा पार्ट जो है वो ज्यादा शेयर होल्डर्स ने और मैनेजमेंट ने, कंपनी ने, हम सब ने इसमें मिलकर अपना पार्ट प्ले करना है कि हम इंश्योर करें कि फीमेल डायरेक्टर्स जो हैं वो इसमें उनके नॉमिनेशन आए, और वो इलेक्शन लड़ें, वोट के ऊपर डाइवर्सिटी आए। तो आई होप कि ये जो हमने अमेंडमेंट्स की हैं उसको पॉजिटिवली जो है वो जो कंपनियां कंप्लाइंट नेचर की हैं उनसे तो हमें यही फीडबैक आया है कि वो इसको वेलकम करती हैं, इसको अडॉप्ट करना चाहती हैं। और वेबिनार का मकसद तो ये था जो आपने कि आपकी कॉपरेशन के साथ हमने क्या कि जो इसमें प्रैक्टिकल इसकी इम्प्लीमेंटेशन है उसको हम एक्सप्लेन करें। तो हम यही होप करते हैं कि कंपनीज इसको अडॉप्ट करेंगी, इसके थ्रू इस प्रोसेस को ज़्यादा ट्रांसपेरेंट होगा और ज़्यादा एफिशिएंट होगा। और बोर्ड के ऊपर डाइवर्सिटी भी बढ़ेगी, इंडिपेंडेंट डायरेक्टर्स की जो और फीमेल डायरेक्टर्स की जो नॉमिनेशन इलेक्शन है वो उसमें भी फैसिलिटेशन आएगी। बाकी सारे जो हमारे पास क्वेश्चन आ रहे हैं, कंटिन्यूसली आ रहे हैं, कोई भी नया मॉडल होता है तो ज़्यादा उसमें रिफाइनमेंट आती है ओवर द पीरियड। हम सारे क्वेश्चन जो है नोट भी कर रहे हैं, जो हमारे पास पिछले वेबिनार में भी आए थे, इस वेबिनार में भी आए हैं। तो उसके लाइट में हम ज़्यादा कंटिन्यूसली भी चीज़ों को देख रहे होते हैं। कि हम किस तरह फर्दर से फर्दर इम्प्रूवमेंट कर सकते हैं। तो अगर किसी के पास कोई और फर्दर सजेशंस हैं इस मॉडल को फर्दर इम्प्रूव करने के लिए, कोई फर्दर को प्रैक्टिकल प्रॉब्लम है, तो अभी भी वो हाईलाइट कर सकते हैं थ्रू क्वेश्चंस, और इसके अलावा भी हमें ईमेल्स कर सकते हैं। जैसे कि मैडम सुमैना ने मेंशन किया था, ये एक बड़ी अच्छी जो है गाइडलाइन भी बना रही है इन द फॉर्म ऑफ फ्रीक्वेंटली आस्क्ड क्वेश्चंस। उसमें भी हम कोशिश करेंगे कि ज़्यादातर सवालात को जो है वहाँ पे एड्रेस करें, ताकि लोगों को ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा जो है वो आसानी हो इन रेगुलेशन को इम्प्लीमेंट करने की।
Very well said, Asif Saab, and thank you so much for whole clarity, transparency regarding these amendments. As far as I know, there have been a couple of webinars already conducted on this topic. एक PSX के साथ हुआ था, that was very informative. And moving forward, एक हमारे that you guys have conducted with PICG. So yeah, for more questions like these, if there are some gray areas, or if people are not clear about anything with regards to these amendments, वो अपने questions जो है वो भेज सकते हैं. We will try to cater them जितने हो सके, maximum number of questions, and we just forward it to relevant authority, and वो आपको इंशाल्लाह इसके answers भी provide करेंगे. Also, as you said, आसिफ साहब, के frequently asked questions पर भी काम हो रहा है, डिस्कशंस हो रही हैं, and वो भी इंशाल्लाह हम सबके अवेयरनेस के लिए और ज़्यादा लाइक क्लियर हो लोगों के concepts on these amendments. So वो भी हम इंशाल्लाह कर रहे हैं, as you said. So for my side, I'm really much grateful by moderating this webinar for SECP and for PICG. Obviously, the motive would be to create more awareness. For the shareholders, for all the stakeholders, ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा आसानी हो उनके लिए, अंडरस्टैंडिंग हो, ताकि एक ही हम उस पे प्रॉपर्ली काम कर सकें, चीज़ों को आसान कर सकें. Lastly, I would request all of the participants, including panelists, to open their cameras for a selfie, so that we can do the selfie thing. How would you do that? Right. So that's us. Thank you so much for your participation, for all the panelists. Ms. Sumaira, Iqbal Sahab, आप लोगों का बहुत-बहुत शुक्रिया, आप लोगों ने मौका दिया, और इंशाल्लाह विल बी इन टच, आगे भी करते रहेंगे. So that's us for now. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much.
Right.